Three, two, one. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Firewood Mediacast. This is episode 9. And today I'm joined by Scott Peebles and Jack Roberts, two filmmakers who are a part of Outcast Productions, an independent film production company based in Manchester. So, guys, how are we doing today?
Very good, yeah, we're doing great. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, good, mate. Doing pretty good.
So, how did you guys meet?
So we actually met on the very first day we moved to uni. So I'm from Wales and Scott's from Preston, which is about an hour either side of Manchester. And yeah, we were just happened to be in the same flat when we moved in. And yeah, it just so happened as well we were in the same classes. So like basically every day we were just going to class together, living together. And that just kind of started the filmmaking journey we've been on.
So you're going to uni for film, right?
Yeah, so we're at the University of Salford. We've just finished, just about finished doing our master's degrees in film production, and we did the bachelor's for 3 years before that. So yeah, we've just been making films together for about 4 years now, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that spark that made you guys want to be a filmmaker? Was it, early on, or how did it happen for the both of you?
I think for me it was when I was about 12. I watched Hot Fuzz, which is an Edgar Wright classic. It's like a British. You've probably seen it, obviously, but like it's like a great British film, and I watched that when I was younger, and it made me want to be a policeman. But then, because I'd watched the film all the time, I watched the behind the scenes and saw like the actual making of the film, and was like, oh, okay, that's what I want to do. That's more interesting. And so that was the one for me, and then I just like got a camera and started shooting, really.
Yeah, I guess for me, I'd say, I don't know, I've just always been into like creating stuff. I think as a little kid, I always wanted to be like an inventor or something like that, or like I always liked painting and stuff like that, and just like creating stuff and that sort of side of things. Maybe like writing has always interested me. But there's never been like much like that for me to do around Preston, where I live. So coming to university sort of gave me the opportunity to really sort of focus on filmmaking. And ever since, I've been totally obsessed.
What are your thoughts on the difference between like American films as opposed to British films? And, how has that sort of shaped your work as well?
Yeah, so I'd say we're big fans of sort of like Linklater and sort of the Duplass brothers and stuff like that, and also a lot of like John Cassavetes' his films and like Shadows and things like that have sort of inspired our style of filmmaking. We've sort of taken a lot of sort of influences as well from the French New Wave and sort of different film movements. But I'd say the mumblecore sort of movement was that like the 90s or something?
Well, it's like the early 2000s, wasn't it? That's like a very American subgenre, really, and that's been a big influence for us. And obviously, there's not really a mumblecore kind of low-budget industry like that in Britain, so it was a big influence for us finding them kind of films. And recently, we've been trying to like almost do a similar thing, but with a British twist, having like British realism and stuff like that. For me, like a lot of American films, kind of obviously America's such a big place, and like stuff like obviously you see the Marvel films and all that kind of stuff. But I think for me, what's more interesting is like the smaller things, the lower budget stuff. But in terms of like Britain, there's not really that kind of parallel. There's not really the same thing going on here, so we're trying to fill that gap, I think.
You've both dabbled in genres of horror and mumblecore, because early on you guys did some horror stuff. Are there any other genres that you just love to explore?
Ooh, yeah, there's loads of stuff I'd say. I think we're quite interested in, right now I'd say we're sort of very interested in sort of getting to grips with the conversational style of filmmaking, but I think that could extend to a lot of different styles, maybe like a whodunit or I don't know, something like a noir or something like that. I think would be quite interesting. What about you, Jack?
Yeah, I think we obviously love all kinds of film, and for me especially, I love kind of like wacky 80s horror.
Ooh, yeah.
And obviously that there's been an influence with that on the films we've made, like Book of Souls is very Evil Dead, Night of the Living Dead inspired. And yeah, I think there's a big shopping centre where we live called Trafford Centre, and we've always talked about doing a Dawn of the Dead style film in there, kind of like taking over the mall and doing the zombie films. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think for me it's like I'd love to do horror. I'd love to do crime. I think at the minute there's a big focus on what we can actually make with the budget we have. So like certain things you just can't do with no budget. So I think as we progress and get bigger budgets and stuff, well hopefully anyway, we can start expanding and doing the bigger budget stuff like horrors and crime. And I think noir as well is there's a big influence of noir in some of our films.
So let's say you're given like all the money in the world. What movie would you make? What would be your dream project?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know actually. I think first of all, there's a lot of like sort of great British actors that we'd like to work with, and it'd be great to sort of bring some of them on board, because I think for a lot of the projects we've worked on so far, we've had to maybe act in them ourselves, or because of our budget, we've had quite limited options in terms of that. But we've always talked about how we'd like to work with
Bill
like
Nye. Bill Nye is a big one.
Yeah, maybe Simon Pegg. So some of
Yeah.
those great.
So I think with an unlimited budget, you'd have to get some of the big guys in there like that. I think we've not necessarily got anything against Marvel films or like big films like that, but
No.
it doesn't really interest me doing something like that. I think if we were to get a bigger budget, it would go on like probably like locations and getting actors that can kind of deliver our style, but in a better way, I guess.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think we'd want to sort of, if anything, we just want to expand sort of the sort of the look of the films, and maybe sort of working with actors like that and having bigger locations it would definitely make our films a lot better. But also we want to make films that sort of have our style, that also do appeal to as wide an audience as possible. Like we've got nothing against like the sort of Marvel big budget films, because there's a massive audience for that, and at the same time we want to sort of create our own audience, this sort of like British social realism style that we're going for.
Yeah, so it'd just be trying to blend bigger budget with this kind of low key style, and I'm sure there's definitely a way to do it, but yeah, that'd be how I'd do it at the minute, I think.
So you mentioned, building an audience. As a filmmaker, what is your responsibility towards the audience?
I don't know really if you have one. I think if you're writing from the heart and you're writing something that you believe in, obviously you don't want to be offensive or do anything that's like, outright wrong. But I think your audience will always interpret your work in a certain way, and as long as you're, staying true to yourself and you're being honest with the art you're making, I think you can kind of do not really whatever you want, but you can definitely toe the line a bit.
Yeah, I guess we have always sort of made the films that we've wanted to make, and then we've always just sort of hoped that there would be an audience for it, and I think we've always found some sort of audience for the films we've made, but that is definitely a big sort of next step for us, trying to find people that are interested in the films that we want to make, and then I think moving forward we can sort of build on our sort of style when we know sort of what the audience is interested in, and if they're interested in this sort of style of film, I guess.
Yeah, while maintaining like our integrity of actually making what we want to make.
Yeah.
I think like as an audience member, you don't have to like the films, and if you don't like them, you don't have to watch them. But in terms of like an obligation or anything, I think the best thing you can do as a filmmaker is just to stay true and make something honest
and personal. Yeah.
So, speaking of personal, you guys have your debut feature film, Floating Through Life. It's on the way. Can you tell us a bit about that project?
That was a great segue.
Loved that.
Well, Scott's the director. He should probably talk about it.
Yeah, so I mean, we've been working on this film for, I don't know, I'd say about 2 years now, maybe. Do you reckon that's about right?
Yeah, I'd say like at the start of COVID, when that all started, you wrote the first draft, didn't you?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about sort of this film for a while. I think I'd been writing it for about a year on and off, and we'd sort of just got to the point where we'd finished our sort of final uni film, and we didn't know if we were going to do this master's course or what we were going to do next. And we thought whilst we still had the university's equipment and the access to all the cameras and the sound gear, we might as well just go ahead and make this feature. And we were looking at all these sort of YouTube videos where people talked about how their about how their first features had sort of failed, I guess, and how it had all been a disaster. And I guess we were kind of concerned about that. But at the same time, we thought this might be our sort of. It was potentially like one of our last chances to make this film whilst we still had access to all the gear. So we went ahead and we made it, and we shot it in about 5 days, I'd say, maybe 2 days extra of like reshoots and getting B-roll and that sort of thing. And it was a 3-person crew as well. It was a really low-key operation because I don't know how COVID affected you guys out there, but here it shut everything down. We had such like limited access to locations. We sort of had to change a few things about the script and stuff like that, and we had to change a bit of dialogue on the go, I guess, to make it possible for us to make the film. But yeah, we made it, and I'm really happy with it. It's sort of about this guy that's coming to the end of his university life, and he's not sure what he's going to do. He's floating through life, hence the title. And it is a bit autobiographical in a way. It's sort of it's a very confusing time in our lives. We've been in this education system for a while now, you know. Our whole lives really, like from I don't know how old you are when you start like primary
5 or something.
Yeah, 5 to 22, nearly 23 now, and it's like it's a crazy time. It's like, what do you do next? And that's what the film's about, and I'm hoping that people can relate to that. And yeah, I hope people enjoy it. It's been a real sort of passion project for us, and we've worked so hard on it. So
Yeah, it has. It was been about, well, it was about May 2021 when we shot. So it's been like 15 months basically since it was shot, and we've had different cuts. We've had a complete cut scrapped and started again, and now it's been about a year of editing it, and we're just getting onto the sound mix now. We're getting the trailer out there. We're trying to push it out. Trailer's out now if you want to watch it. A lot of hard work's gone into it, and I think we're pretty proud of it.
yeah.
So you mentioned, this is a very quick shoot with this project. What would a typical shoot look like for you guys?
Well, it's interesting because it all depends. I think we're quite quick with what we do because a lot of it's improvised and we use multicam and stuff. Not always, but like we shot a short film the other week and it was a 20-minute short film all done in a day. And honestly, the results are like pretty impressive. And so our shoots kind of go quickly. We find our locations and we just go and shoot, and then trust ourselves that we can sort it out in the edit. And to be fair, I think most times we've been able to get something out of it. I think our shoots are always really relaxed, and we facilitate an atmosphere that's just, you can try whatever you want. You don't have to feel like, you don't have to stick to the script. You can improvise. You can try different lines. I think generally actors kind of enjoy working with us, because of the relaxed atmosphere, and it's not like these.
It's not so rigid, is it? Yeah, it's a very open process, I'd say.
Yeah, it doesn't go on for months at a time. Well, the edit does, but the shoot doesn't. The shoot generally are pretty short. And
But it is rarely a case of us having to fix it in the edit as well, because even though it is sort of quite a quick process, it never feels rushed. We'll do like I think it might have been an 11-hour day the other week, and we got a 20-minute film, and all of our lecturers and other people were saying, oh, I don't know if you should do that. I don't know if it'll be any good. You're trying to rush it here. And we've looked at the footage and everything, and it doesn't look rushed. So I think it's very doable to make these films in a short period of time. And sometimes you've got to, like, I feel like after university, we don't have the luxury of time. Yeah, so we're gonna have to make these films on a quick turnaround, and we want to keep making feature films if we can. That's the goal. So yeah, we're gonna try and make it work.
So what are some of your ambitions with this movie? What do you hope to accomplish once it's released?
I'd say festivals early on. I mean, we're going to do a private screening next month for like family and friends, so that's like short term, but once it's in festivals, we're going to start locally, try to do some stuff in the UK, and then based on the success of that or failure of that, I suppose, but hopefully success, we'll push it out to further and farther places. And obviously the ultimate goal when making an independent film is like getting it seen by people, and because it's our first feature, we want it seen by as many people as possible. Places like a big influence like Mark and Jay Duplass, they are big like champions of VOD, getting stuff on like online for like short, like small fees. And I think that's kind of an ultimate goal of independent filmmaking, is just to be able to make a bit of a return, but getting it out on places like Amazon or Netflix, or probably not Netflix, but
Yeah. They sort of have this business model as well, where they'll make a film, and using the profits and everything that they make from that film, they'll invest that into the next film, and then the next film, and it's sort of a bit of a process and a bit of a, I guess, a life cycle of production for them. And that's something we're very interested in. But it just really depends on people being interested in this first film, which will hopefully kickstart things. And if it is a failure, which it might be, then
just got to get out there and make the next one.
Yeah,
and
we'll just
keep
go make the
making
next
films, because when it's a passion, you just got to keep doing it.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't really think it can be a failure, because we've also learnt so much from it. It's been invaluable, really, the sort of time we've spent on this. And I think our next feature will hopefully be like considerably better. I think since we made this film, we've even I don't know, we've developed quite a lot as filmmakers.
Yeah, like we shot the film a year ago, but we've made like 5 shorts since, and the quality just keeps improving.
But that's not to say that the quality of the feature's really bad or anything. It's pretty good, I'd say.
Yeah, well, we'd have to say so, wouldn't we?
Well, yeah, we should back our own project, but yeah, it's we're happy with it, aren't we?
Yeah.
So, a lot of first-time filmmakers, in terms of their features, tend to fall into a lot of pitfalls. And you've even mentioned watching videos of people talking about that. Whether it be really long and drawn out, there's no point to certain scenes, or anything like that. What were some, I guess, moves that you made to attempt to avoid that at all costs? To really kind of follow what people had done before and avoid doing the typical first filmmaker tropes in your movie.
I think that we before we made the film, we did watch a lot of them videos where people talked about like what you shouldn't do when you make your first feature, and I think for the most part, a lot of them were kind of avoided. A big element of the shoot was kind of using things that we had available to us, which I'm sure you do as well with your films. It's kind of, you make with what you've got. Like we had Scott's car, we had Scott's house in our student house, and like certain props, and just like work the story around that. Which is kind of a big way of making something look quite good, but while not like
minimizing risk of failure, I guess. Yeah, like the entire time we'd sort of from the conception of the idea, we always write our films to be for feasibility, and this film was no different. Even though it was a feature film, the big challenge was sort of finding actors and finding I don't know, we were originally trying to find a bigger crew that would be willing to do it during this COVID period, and we ended up doing it with a 3-person crew. And sometimes you've got to adapt and make do with the situation, but in the end, I think we sort of had everything we needed for the film. And so
and as well in terms of like first-time filmmakers making mistakes, they talk about like not shooting against white walls. That's a big thing, and sometimes it's not, you can't avoid it, but like trying to find ways to make shots dynamic, and using like DIY lighting and stuff like that to really make it not look like a student film, or not look like an amateur film.
We used a lot of like natural lighting, didn't we? Like sort of candles, and well, I don't think we actually used any candles,
but lamps and like stuff like that. Off the top of my head, I can't think of many like I'm sure when people see it, they might think, oh, that's a trope of first-time filmmakers, but for the most part, off the top of my head, I can't really think of any right now.
So there's clearly a group of people working on these movies, or at least that's how it feels, when I see it, because it feels a lot bigger than I'm sure it actually is, which is, a good thing, don't get me wrong. But how is the work divided up, and are there any creative differences between you guys during production?
To be honest, I'd say it's always run fairly smoothly, to be honest, between me and Jack. We've always been on quite a similar page with what we've wanted, and if we want to try out an idea, we've because we sort of lived together for quite a while, we were able to have these long discussions about why we wanted things a certain way or why we didn't like certain things. And we'd watch a lot of films together to take inspiration and get influences.
Yeah, and in a way, it's kind of formed us into the same filmmaker in a way. Like,
Yeah.
it's funny because some shorts are directed by me, some are by Scott, and then we kind of take it in turns, writing, producing, editing, whatever. And like, in a way, that there might be a bit of a like a crossover with our styles. It's almost like you might not be able to tell which one's directing because the style is quite similar. And I think in terms of creative differences, there's never really been any. We've had, obviously, when you shoot films, there's always conversations about how to do things, and sets are quite stressful at times. So like, clearly, like, it's not always a wonderfully running shoot, but in real life, we're actually friends. So it's like, making films together is just like an extension of that. It's not really like we have big creative differences or anything like that. And we work with a lot of different people as well. We've brought different DOPs on, different sound people, and generally everyone gets on really well, and we have a good time on our shoots.
That's great. So what gear do you use while you shoot? Because I saw some of the behind the scenes stuff on your Instagram, and some of that stuff looks really, really, kind of high tech, with some of what I've seen. So, what do you use? Is that from your university?
Yeah, so we've sort of been playing around with different gear at the university and what we've had access to. The feature we shot with the EVA 1, the Panasonic EVA 1, and we also shot with some Samyang prime lenses and stuff like that. We've sort of moved more towards the Panasonic S1H recently, and that's like a Netflix approved camera, but at the same time it's like a DSLR sort of body, so it's quite inconspicuous. And I'd say if you wanted to sort of shoot somewhere, like, I'm not saying you should without a permit, but if you needed to, it's sometimes you need to.
Yeah,
and,
you can get away shooting gorilla with the S1H because it is inconspicuous. But yeah, we've done a bit of everything really. We used my camera at the start. We've used Scott's camera, which is a G7. We've used the Varicam, the EVA, the S1H. It's just a bunch of different cameras really. And I think we've kind of at one point we settled on the EVA. We were like, yeah, let's get an EVA. Let's buy one of these. It's a great camera. And now the S1H has come along, and it's changed our view a bit. But yeah, we've always used the prime lenses. The sound kit is always. I think recently we've used the Mix Pre 6, which is a really good little portable recorder. Yeah.
Playing around with stabilizers quite a bit recently. The uni has like those big sort of Ronin stabilizers, but we've just been using like a little one that one of our mates has.
Yeah, it's called like a Xeon or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
But it's really good, and it balances the S1H really well and gets that really smooth kind of tracking shots.
So what advice would you give on filmmakers, or give on filmmaking towards like aspiring filmmakers? Because there's a lot of people that want to get into filmmaking but don't necessarily know how.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably the obvious advice that everyone always gives, but just going out and making films has always helped. And I mean, we sort of were shooting films originally on, it was like a crappy DSLR, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We've never really worried about the equipment or the sort of. At first, we weren't that worried about the quality of the equipment we were using, or like the audio, or like how good that was. And that's something that's evolved. So I'd say to beginner filmmakers, I'd say just go out and make your films and think about things that you're interested in. I think that helps. If it's a personal story, narratively, I think that goes a long way. And because you've got to be interested in the film that you want to make, And if you are interested, I think that sort of comes across quite well, and I think other people will be interested in that way. You can hopefully start to build your audience.
Yeah, and I think as well there's a big, debate on film school, but and like the pros and cons of it. But I think for me and Scott, being from where we're from, there isn't really an industry there. So moving to a film school, and obviously you get the experience of university as well, but having the opportunity to meet like-minded people who are also passionate about what you want to do, and getting the opportunity to use the gear and the facilities, and building a community together. I think film school in that sense is a very beneficial thing, and I honestly recommend it if I was giving advice, which I am. Film school is, it's been invaluable, really.
And I don't think people should see sort of, because when you go to film school, a lot of people can be quite competitive, and I really think that's quite a narrow-minded sort of mindset when making films, because I think you should try and build that community and all sort of come up together. I think that's a really, that's the way we've always tried to do it. We've tried to sort of work with these people and build these relationships that will hopefully go on to be mutually beneficial.
What scene or short film are you the most proud of?
Ooh, good question.
I think there's a lot of things, because for us, obviously making them, I always lean to the films that I had the most fun shooting, and in terms of like the most proud, I'm probably the most proud of this feature film that's coming out soon. But in terms of like my favourite film, I'd say Book of Souls, the black and white one about the students living in the house. It's like the Evil Dead film. I just think
it's got the least views, hasn't it? But we're quite like I'd say we're quite nostalgic guys. Really, we look back on these films that we used to make, and the memories you make and the people you work with. It's just such a good time, and we've always just had such a great time making these films. And I'd say Book of Souls as well probably was a big one for me.
There's films that aren't on the YouTube channel anymore, which are still like privated now, but like old cowboy films, zombie films, all that kind of stuff. You look back on them and really kind of reminisce, and in a way, obviously technically they're not that good, but the memories with them you do enjoy. But I think if I was like suggesting a film to someone that's not seen our work, I think it'd have to be the feature, really. But
we just I guess we've always just, I don't know, it sounds quite vain, but we've always really enjoyed watching our own films. I think that's we just enjoy our work, and we enjoy to make the films but also to watch them.
That's interesting to hear, because for me, if I just a while back, I just put out a new short film, and my parents like put it up on the screen during dinner, and then I'm just like, all right, I'm done. I gotta like leave the room, because it just makes me so uncomfortable. So that's interesting to hear, though, that you guys like seeing your own stuff, and that's great, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you make it for yourself first and foremost, I think, and then when you put it out there, hopefully other people enjoy it. But it's always fun to watch them back. We've actually seen some of your films. Was it the baseball one that you were talking about?
Yes, it was. Yeah,
I liked that film. That was good, man.
Yeah, we really like that one.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think you've just got to just back your own work, and obviously it is a bit painful sometimes watching your own work back and seeing you like self do stupid things, but it's all fun, and as long as you take it, as long as it's light-hearted, there's no reason to have a fun time watching them back.
And it's exciting as well. I'm sure you feel the same way. Oh, I don't know if you do. Maybe I'm just being presumptuous. But when you watch your latest film, I'm sure you see that and you think, wow, how far have I come? If you compare it to some of like your early stuff sometimes, I know that we feel that way. Like, it's nice to know that you are
making progress.
Yeah, making that progress. It feels, it's a good feeling.
Yeah, like
we've just 100%.
We've just done an export of our feature, and we're going to watch it after this, and kind of seeing the exported version in its full quality and stuff. It was just like a moment where it's like, wow, it's compared, like the other day we watched some of our like old work, and like just seeing the progress and the improvement. It's really nice to see.
Yeah, what's interesting too with YouTube as a portfolio is you can see that progress being made pretty much in real time, depending on if you have a playlist. Like we have one where it's in chronological order where you can just watch it, you can see the progress. It's interesting to see, for sure.
Yeah, it is. It really makes it all feel worth it, I think, when you can see that. Yeah.
especially when other people can see that as well, see the progression and like the potential in what you can do.
Because it's a crazy thing as well, telling your parents like, I want to be a filmmaker. It's such like a it's an out there career, and I'm sure a lot of people's parents tell them, no, 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 don't do that.
Yeah.
But I think we've been lucky that we've had such like supportive parents and family that have said, yes, go do that, and they've backed us. And we almost feel like a bit of an obligation, I'd say, to be successful in this field, and to to be able to make films that hopefully they will enjoy as well is like such like a motivator for us.
Yeah, especially because the feature we've just done, like there's quite a few of Scott's family members in it. So if the film was bad, it would be
Yeah.
even worse.
Yeah. So we're excited to do the screening, aren't we? I'd say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's gonna be good.
We kind of touched on this a little bit before, but here in America, we have Hollywood, and then New York is more for TV, and then Texas is starting to kind of have its own industry that's really starting to pick up. But you guys kind of mentioned that there isn't really something like that for you guys in the UK. So could you touch on that? Like, is that how does that affect you guys as filmmakers?
Yeah. So I mean, there are sort of, I guess. The opportunities for us are quite limited, but also they're not if you know where to find them. Like there's different grants and stuff that you can chase. I think is it called the BFI grant, and there's like sort of lottery funded grants here for filmmakers and for different artists, for like there's Creative Arts England or something like that. And I think sort of something that we're going to look at after university, because you can't apply for these grants whilst you're in education, but we're going to look at sort of going after these grants to get a bit of money to fund future projects. But as a whole, the industry is quite hard to access. If you want to approach filmmaking this way, if you just want to make your films, a lot of one of the main ways to get into the industry is to start off as a runner and sort of work your way up the ladder, which is how most people do it. And that's good for some people, but really we want to try and make our own films and go about it that way.
Yeah, like the independent route in the UK is a bit different, because obviously there's London, and London is like kind of the UK's Hollywood, and New York in one. Most things come from London, and then there's Manchester up north, which is kind of a much smaller version, but that's the closest thing to us. And so for us, I think independent filmmaking, doing it yourself, and going through the festival circuit seems to be the most accessible way of doing it. Yeah,
because I'd say like the north of England is quite it's infamously got a lot less opportunities for creatives, than down south. Like that's where all the money is, and up north it's it's the poor man's dream.
Yeah. There's a big divide in the UK of north and south, and we're trying to rep the north.
Yeah, kings of the north.
I get what you mean though. I don't know if states or anything, or like geography wise, but I'm based in Wisconsin, which is like the middle of nowhere, I guess. Being in the middle of nowhere, just shooting movies, you always kind of get weird looks from people. So I get the feeling, yeah.
Yeah, as well, because I mean, I have a rough idea of geography in America, but it's it's just so big. Like to drive from here to London is probably only like a 3-hour drive, but that's like not even across a state in America. So it's realistically London is quite close, but because of the UK's size, it feels a lot further.
You mentioned the independent movies that are kind of sort of put out in like the London area. Does that at all affect your work? Are you making connections to that area, or are you just kind of just winging it, just putting stuff out your way?
I'd say there's a lot of people at the university, and a lot of people that are like our sort of colleagues that are going about it that way, and they're trying to find work and sort of promote their work in London and down south. But I think we're trying to build our own thing up north, really, and trying to sort of, I mean, we're not trying to like play off that divide, or anything like that, but we're sort of just, it's just where we are, I guess. So it's what we're doing, and we're trying to build something up here, and there are some opportunities up here, and we're going to try and go after those, and just see if we can sort of put our own unique voice and spin on things, I guess.
Yeah, I'd say we probably fall into the wing it category.
Yeah,
for
probably.
for most things.
We are those guys, probably.
So this is just kind of circling back to, your own production on your own films now. You mentioned having a lower budget. Has the budget affected the way that you imagined a scene in your head as opposed to the way it turned out in the final cut, for better or for worse?
To be fair, I don't think the budget has ever sort of affected us so far in terms of like the films that we've made. If anything, it's just made things harder in pre-production when we've been trying to organize things, because we're making these student films, and like a lot of the time actors are just working for free, and like we're working with our friends and stuff like that. So when you're not paying people, it's never going to be a big priority for them, or as much so as it is for you, because they need to pay their rent, and they need money for food or whatever, and to live their lives. And so I think once we can finally get funding, it just will open that door up to being able to work with the people we want to work with more freely, I guess.
And obviously, because a lot of the films are written to what we have, they kind of come out how we expect them to. Although, yeah, I don't think so. A lot of the shorts, and the feature, kind of come out pretty how we want them to.
Yeah, and you can see it's probably clear when you watch them that this isn't like £1 million movie, but at the same time, I think we make the most of that sort of low budget aesthetic. Like the feature, I think we made it for about £200, which is, I don't know how many dollars that is, but
$250.
yeah, maybe something like that. So we made it pretty low budget, and yeah, it's just always been that way for us, I guess. And hopefully we get money to make bigger things at some point, but we'll just keep on plugging away until we do.
So how does sound design factor into your movies? How important is that in the grand scheme of things?
Well, it's really important. I think me and Scott are such big fans of music as well that like the music always is the film doesn't feel good until the music's in it, and then it's like, oh, it's actually quite good. Like the music is like a huge part into it. We create our own music for the films. We have friends that make music. We follow like local bands who make music, and that's a way to get music in films. In terms of like sound, we have a few different sound recordists who do a great job. Our friend Tom, who did the sound for the feature, did a great job. And then in terms of like the edit, it's just trying to enrich that, make it sound as clean as possible. Atmos and Foley, sound effects, all that kind of stuff, just really enriching the film. We've, especially with the earlier stuff we've done with horror, like, you want suspense and all that stuff and really getting like creepiness across. But with our current work, with the kind of realism of it, the sound design always has to sound pretty, realistic, and like as if it would be, as if it's not been touched, as if it's just come straight through the camera. So yeah, it's interesting. I think it all depends on the project, really.
So are there any film composers that you're inspired by whenever you make these scores for your own work?
I'd say like Ennio Morricone's been a big inspiration. I love his work that he did on Cinema Paradiso. John Williams,
John Brion, he did the soundtrack for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and Punch Drunk Love.
Graham Reynolds, he did the one for like some of the Before Midnight, I think it was.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the time we're quite sort of focused on these sort of like piano type instrumental pieces when we're writing our own work. Like we use like a MIDI keyboard, and we sort of write our own music. I've been sort of playing piano for like I think about 10 years or something now, so I'm fairly like comfortable writing my own stuff. And Jack's always been producing his own music. He's got like quite a few albums out there that he's made as well of his own work.
Yeah, so it's kind of trying to combine this piano sound with this like kind of like software produced music. And I think a big thing that the music in our films tries to do. It doesn't always do it, but it's like atmosphere, like not always like instruments that sound like instruments, but trying to get across like a noise. If that sounds really stupid, but like
To like build the emotion, I guess, like, like to undertone certain scenes and like
it's like normal
highlight
people.
things.
The music in normal people doesn't always sound like music. It just sounds like
Yeah.
I don't
So
know,
that's this
melodic
British
noise.
TV show we're quite a fan of, and the way they use music in that, it's quite like it's been quite an inspiration for us, I'd say.
Why don't we talk a bit about your films? How
Yeah.
Oh, if you'd like to, yeah. I mean, if you guys want to ask any questions or anything, or just have anything general discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, like, what's your process like? Because obviously we've talked about like the low budget side of it. How do you go about doing stuff for like low budgets?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll just kind of run through really quick some of the projects I've done. The first one I did was I was like a sophomore in high school, so I was working at this historical place. It was called Old World, Wisconsin, and I had this old timey farmer's costume, and because it was like a living museum. And so I'm like, oh, I'll just make a movie around this because I have it. So I did this kind of period piece horror thing that was like 2 minutes long. It wasn't good at all, but it worked from there. So I figured, well, I made this in a day, so I think I could, make a feature film down the line. And then I did. But a lot of what I try to do is I just try to make a movie that is in my head that no one else has made that I'd like to see. And that's just what's kind of happened. Like a project I'm really proud of is a feature I made called Pesticide. And with that one, it was just combining every influence I could, from Tarantino's Pulp Fiction, which is the film student kind of bare bones, oh yeah, I like Pulp Fiction. Everyone kind of says
It's
that.
good fun.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. It's just, I don't know about you guys, but the school I go to now, everyone talks about Pulp Fiction, so it's become almost like stereotypical. But just combining influences and everything. I really try to just tell a personal story that's low budget that, we can film in a reasonable amount of time.
Have you found like your
Because when I was in high school, I was a theater kid.
Yeah, well, actually, that's similar to me. I was sort of doing theatre a bit like before I came to university, and I think that was a big inspiration. But have you found like a sort of crew then that you work with for all of your projects at school or something like that?
Yeah, 100%. Most of them are actually people I went to high school with, as opposed to the school I go to now, because they were in theater same as me, so we kind of set up this bond and this whole process of doing stuff. My buddy Joe, he's been in every movie I've done, at least features. He's been in a few shorts, so we just kind of had this production setup that works really well. What about with you guys? Is that the same kind of setup?
Yeah, I think at first we had a really solid like trio. We worked with this guy called Adam Mazzaros. Shout out Adam. He's a good friend, and we a lot of the early films we did with him. But since then we've kind of been jumping around different crew. Like we've found a guy called Dan Gould who makes a lot of his style's really cool. We've used different sound people. I think sometimes, there's quite a few times we've used the same crew.
But we've just tried to keep it as like open as possible, like the collaboration process to sort of work with as many people as we can. But it is great when you find those people, like you found your mate that you work with, and I feel lucky that I found sort of a great collaborative partnership with Jack with the projects we made, because I think it always helps to have that other person there, because it's not just you against the world. Then you've got someone else to help you with like your films, and it seems more doable.
Yeah, for sure. It's like I was saying the other day to someone about like going to the gym. It's a lot easier going to the gym with someone else, because when you're not feeling it, the other person will drag you there. And it's kind of the same with filmmaking. If one day I can't be bothered, Scott will be like, "Come on, let's go make a film." And it kind of works like that, where it's easier to do something with other people, and that's what makes filmmaking such like an important collaboration.
Definitely.
I agree completely. Yeah. Because we've had moments where I mean, we try to go really ambitious with some of our stuff. And like, I mean, my first feature was like a science fiction thing about the sun, getting closer to the earth and then the world ends. But, it was stuff like that where it was like, okay, we have to piece stuff together in post. And I just share my screen with someone and then I go, okay, does this look right? So it is a very collaborative process.
Sure,
I
yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
We've done that before as well, gone for like very ambitious things. We did a story about a cowboy who gets teleported to the future and has to like fight these mob bosses, and it's just like doing these like crazy ambitious ideas are just so much harder to like nail than the low key stuff.
But in a way, they're more fun, I guess.
Yeah, it's always more fun doing something big.
Yeah,
So.
like we did like a zombie film. That's one of the first ones we did. And then we did one where our friend thinks he's John Lennon, which he slowly becomes John Lennon, and just weird stuff like that. And I think they're great movies to work on as you sort of develop him, because you can make these films, but at the same time you can have fun. And I think that's one of the most important things. I think so many people, when you're talking to them about how they make films and stuff like that, they say, "Oh, it's so painful. Oh, I just hate it. It's so stressful." But maybe it doesn't have to be that way. It's never really been terrible for us. We've always found like an enjoyment with it, I think.
Yeah, especially at the beginning, you've got to do something you enjoy. And if making a cowboy film about a time traveler is what you want to do, then do it. And you fall in love with making films that way.
So have you guys seen any movies recently that have just made you just go, oh man, like this is, because there's a lot of, like we said, the whole Marvel stuff, and obviously that's well and fine in its own right. But, has there been a movie recently that you saw where you were just like, oh my gosh, I want to make something like this? Could be new, could be old.
Morbius was great.
No, he's joking.
I am joking.
To be clear. Well, I rewatched Creep yesterday, and Creep 2, which is just like a found footage horror film, which is a super simple concept, but it's so well done that it makes you think, like, why didn't I think of that? But yeah, I think, I mentioned it before, but Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I watched that, and that was just brilliant. That was just like, just a really good film.
Yeah.
What else?
I watched a film last night. It was called Monkey Business, and it was by Howard Hawks, 1952 film, and it was kind of weird, these like sort of middle-aged people take this concoction that this monkey's made, and then they become like young again. It was quite a fun film. But I like watching old films a lot of the time, I feel like with a lot of new stuff, the plot and the narrative sort of gets pushed to the sidelines in favor of these big VFX, things, which can be good. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I see these like big VFX pieces and I'm like, wow, that's really visual and nice. But generally, I'll always go for like a plot heavy or something that really sort of, I don't know, something emotional or something that makes you feel something. That's what I want from a film.
Yeah, a big film that we talk about a lot is The Puffy Chair, which Mark Duplass made in like 2005 or something like that.
Yeah, I think that was his first film, wasn't it?
That was his first film, kind of.
Yeah.
And that's one that we always talk about, wishing we'd made. We've been down a rabbit hole of the French New Wave recently, like Jean-Luc Godard and Francois Truffaut, and how they kind of changed the rules of cinema and stuff. And I think that's a big influence for what we're going to try and do next, make something very different.
You're stranded on a desert island. You can only bring 5 movies with you. What are your 5 movies? I guess it's for both of you guys, or, any way you want to tackle this.
Oh, okay. I'll go first because I think I know them in my head.
All right, you go first.
Okay. Dawn of the Dead, the original, George A. Romero. Scott Pilgrim versus the World. It's just a classic. Johnny English, the first one, great film, love that. And then I'll be a bit more serious. La Petite Soldat by Jean-Luc Godard. I think that's just a great film. And the 5th one, The Shining.
Ooh, that's good. For
Nice.
me, what would I say?
Yeah.
Ooh, I would say probably. I'm just looking through my what's it called? My letterbox right now.
Well, while you're looking for that, I'll tell a funny story. The first day me and Scott came to university, you'll probably relate to this actually. A lot of people were, you get asked your favourite question and or your favourite film, and everyone has to answer in class, and everyone was saying, Pulp Fiction, Citizen Kane, Whiplash, all these films, which are great films. But and I said Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and Scott said
Lethal Weapon 2.
Lethal Weapon 2.
And the whole class, they all looked at us like there was something wrong with us. And we thought, well, maybe there is, but we've just sort of rolled with it since then. But yeah, if I found my films, I'd probably say Blue Jay, Before Sunset, Way Back, Good Will Hunting, and Brief Encounter by David Lean, I think, for my fifth one.
Nice. Not bad.
Love it. What about you? What are your 5 favorites?
Oh boy. Well, for starters, King Kong, the 1933 one, the original. It's all-time favorite movie because that's what made me want to be a filmmaker. So, which that was another thing too. First day of school, they asked that, and I said, "Oh yeah, mine's King Kong, like the original," and everyone just looks at me like I'm crazy. Moneyball, that one is a fantastic movie. Trying to think. THX 1138. That was George Lucas's first feature. It's an incredible movie. The original version, not the weird special edition he did, but Godzilla versus the Smog Monster from 1971. That one. It's so weird. It's like one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
All those kaiju films were so great. Like the Mothra film, and I love all that stuff. Yeah, it's great.
I don't know, the other two, probably Gummo, Harmony Korine. He's a huge influence on me. And I don't know, maybe either. I don't know. I'm gonna go with Gattaca with Ethan Hawke. I don't know if you've seen that one, but that one's the production design on that movie is just crazy good.
Big Ethan Hawke fan, Scott.
Yeah, I love Ethan Hawke. Great actor.
If I was to throw one more in, actually, if I get a 6th film, which breaks the rules, but I'd go Return of the Living Dead, 1985.
Oh my god, I love that movie.
It's so good, man.
Is it your favorite zombie film?
It's my favorite. I think it's the best zombie film. It's just got everything you want. Oh, it's
I
fantastic.
agree. It's got that punk flavoring to it. It's just
what a film.
My favorite T-shirt that I own is a Return of the Living Dead shirt. So it's such a great movie.
It's pretty rock and roll.
Maybe I'll throw Chunking Express.
The Tar Man.
Actually, I like
Bit of One Car Why.
Yeah, I like Chunking Express.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys ever deal with like distribution problems with wanting to see a specific film and then it's not really out by you guys?
Yeah.
Or?
So I'd say like sometimes there's films that we want to watch here, but they mainly come out in the States first. I think I feel like we've said his name like 50,000 times, but Mark Duplass's film Language Lessons. It's one of his like recent ones he did. I don't think he actually directed it. I think that his co-star directs it, but it still not out here. I don't think on VOD, but it was out in America like a year ago or something. Yeah. So
there's a new film called I Love My Dad, which is coming out soon, which it's got all its like American release sorted, but still nothing here. It is a bit like that. Like you can't find the films you want to watch.
Nope, the new Jordan Peele one. Yeah. I think is that out there already?
Yeah, I've seen it twice. It's phenomenal. It's so good.
It's not even out here. No.
We went to see Us twice. The last Jordan Peele
about
film.
3. I think 3 times.
Did we go 3 times?
Yeah.
That was a film you had to see a few times. I think it's better than Get Out, personally.
Ooh, bold claim. Yeah, actually, so do I. To be fair, I quite like that one. I'm looking forward to Nope.
I saw Nope, and the first time I saw it, I was kind of like, all right, some things didn't really line up. And then I saw it a second time. I brought my girlfriend, and she jumped so many times. There were so many moments that scared the shit out of her. It was hilarious. But, like, the more times you see it, though, the more stuff that you catch. And it gets better and better with every watch. Yeah. But
Jordan Peele's so great. He's got, like, a really distinctive voice, hasn't he, as a filmmaker? And I think he's definitely, like...
One to watch.
One to watch, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what he does next, for sure. Because he has a lot of love for, like, the older... horror movies of yesteryear. So it's interesting to see that style. Like Nope is very Spielberg. So
he produced the Candyman remake as well, didn't he? Which was amazing. I thought that was really good.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
I haven't seen that. I've only seen the original, which I
love
love
the
the
original.
original.
It's
So
The callbacks to the original in it are just so good.
yeah, he has a really just distinct style though to the way he directs stuff, and it feels very reminiscent of like that '70s filmmaking.
Yeah, I'd say
style.
he definitely does like stand out amongst like his Hollywood contemporaries at the moment. Like you see a lot of films now, and they don't really make you feel a certain way. You know, not to put Hollywood on blast or anything, but yeah,
Well, it's like we talked about Taika Waititi, isn't it? He's kind of become
Yeah.
the Hollywood leading director now, and his films have
Yeah.
kind of taken a dive.
Yeah, I wasn't a massive fan of the new Thor: Love and Thunder one, but then I go back and I watch films that he made, like Boy, or What We Do in the Shadows, and stuff like that. And I'm just a massive fan of that stuff. I think sometimes like maybe getting a big budget isn't always the best thing for a director or something like that. It gives you more opportunities, but also you've got to work under those constraints of like the Hollywood system and the studio that you've got to sort of work under, I guess. Yeah, but I don't know. I'm interested to see what he does next. He's still a great filmmaker for sure.
There's very few directors, at least for some of my friends that are not really, super into film, where they are like, oh, let's go see the new, blank movie. And the one that's always like that, everyone I know that just loves his stuff is Edgar Wright. I mean, everyone I know, they're like, oh, new Edgar Wright movie, let's go see it. Because Scott Pilgrim is like huge here. I don't know about you guys, but like,
Yeah, Edgar Wright's a big one over here. His recent film I don't think was that great, but
Last Night in Soho.
yeah, it wasn't that great. But basically everything else he's done is top tier.
Yeah, he's great. And when you see all like the behind the scenes sort of documentaries that he does on his like DVD bonus features or whatever, you can tell that he just loves making movies, and that is his passion. And it's great to see like someone that is like sort of. He didn't come from like any big Hollywood families or anything. He's come up the hard way, and he's made films, and he's done it.
Yeah.
And it makes it seem possible, I'd say, for people that are from those sort of like remote areas, like he was in England. It's quite, I don't know, it's nice.
Yeah. I think every film he's done is brilliant, with the exception of Last Night in Soho.
Yeah.
I feel like British filmmakers have a harder time making it big in America because there's sort of that like cultural difference, like British humor is extremely dry, which I love, but not a lot of people do, like looking at like Monty Python, for example. But, do you guys see that big of a disconnect, or is it really just like, look at like American comedies, like modern stuff? Like, do you guys appreciate that at all? Or
I think we've definitely got an appreciation for the American comedy. Like me and Jack have been discussing The Office recently, because I'm not a big fan of the American remake of The Office, but Jack's a big fan of it.
Yeah, I think it's great.
But at the same time, I love stuff like Anchorman and Step Brothers, and like some of those films.
Yeah.
I love American comedies. They're great, and I think there's definitely like a lot to say for both sides of like the sort of both sides of the pond in terms of comedy. I think.
Yeah, I think when it's good comedy, it's good comedy. But like,
Yeah.
like I've been having to sit through Superstore recently.
Yeah.
And I
My
think
family loves Superstore. I'm not a
it's
fan.
the most unfunny thing I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, it's like I think that's just like not that. It's not like risky comedy in any way. So it's not interesting. But yeah, I think like British filmmakers, similar to like British musicians, there's always the thing of like cracking America, like getting across to the audience in America and kind of becoming global. It's a similar thing with film. Like it is just harder to do.
Yeah. I think it's like it's interesting, like just if it's a sort of different audience, maybe, I guess. It's still like it's different, but then again, it's the same, isn't it? It's just like you're just trying to relate to people, I guess, and you're not always going to be able to relate to the wide audience that you want to. And I think sometimes our sense of humor, I'd say, is very dry, and I think we try and like keep it as like open as possible, but maybe we need to just play into our Britishness. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think that's the perfect place to end it for today. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. In the description, you could see a link to check out the trailer. If you guys want to close out with anything,
Yeah, so I'd just like to say, thanks for having us, Cole. Honestly, it's been great talking to you about films and everything, and it's great to hear what you're interested in as well. Um, and yeah, for anyone that is interested in what we've talked about, definitely go check out the trailer for the film. Maybe subscribe to our YouTube channel and stuff. And yeah, big thanks. Anything you want to say, Jack?
Yeah, big thank you for having us on. It's been a lot of fun. Hope everyone's enjoyed, and yeah, appreciate you wanting to speak to us.
I hope we've not been too boring.
Yeah.